Our next speaker is an anomaly. She's a radical, militant trade unionist who was a member of the AFL-CIO Executive Council. Roseanne DeMoro is Executive Director of the National Nurses United, the nation's largest union of nurses. You're not ready. I have to give you a little more, Roseanne. DeMoro is also Executive Director of the California Nurses Association, which is well known for, well, listen, she actually has been famous for upending one of the world's most famous celebrity politicians, Arnold Schwarzenegger, dropping his public approval from 70% to 35% under DeMoro's stewardship. The NNU and the CNA is also renowned for leading national advocates of single-payer Medicare for all health care reform. Over the past year, NNU has led a national campaign calling for a tax on Wall Street, also known as the Robin Hood tax, and has supported the Occupy Wall Street movement with nurses' first aid stations from New York to San Francisco. I give you with great pleasure, Roseanne DeMoro.
Thank you, Stanley. It's quite a trip, quite a privilege to be here with you, one of my heroes. So thank you for that nice introduction, and thank you all. I really want to do the speech on why I really loathe liberals, but I think someone else is going to do that. I just get so wound up. Our communications director, Chuck Idelson, always winds me up every time I start to speak about something, and then I just go off in another direction. But I'll tell you, this poll-driven drivel, poll-driven, it's just like literally, I can't take it anymore. We just live in this shallow culture with this drivel that comes out of the mouth of these people who bolster these Democrats and give them cover and make them think that it's okay. They worship at the altar of bipartisanship. And the goal is bipartisanship. It's not a means to an end. It's become the goal. And in doing that, they disavow class awareness, class consciousness, class. So, for example, how many of you are here from the labor movement? All right, our labor movement, and yes, Stanley, I am a part of it, coined the phrase, "We are one." Now, they took that campaign, which was a consultant-created campaign. The difference between the right and the left, the right tells the consultants what to do, and the consultants tell the left what to do. In labor. I'm not saying here. Present company accepted. All right. We are one. I mean, what happened to us versus them? You know, it's like, I don't know about you all, but I know our nurses don't think their bosses are their friends. And in fact, they fight against them every single day. And if I ever adopted the posture that your boss was your friend, they'd kick my ass out of that organization so fast I'd see my head spin. We're not one. We're not one. And I can't even get like where that pandering goes. It's a disavowing of class. My best guess is they think the servile posture will overwhelm them into submission. We are one, don't hurt us. I mean, it's just outrageous. There's a working class movement, the Occupy movement, like God love them, man, I'll tell you. It's out there, and they don't say we are one. They say we're the 99% and screw you 1%, right? Good thing Andrew Breihart isn't in this room. At any rate, but I love the left forum. You're never, ever, ever afraid to speak truth to power. You've been doing it for your history. Continue to do it. You can count on the fact, I mean, there are so many of us that count on that kind of beacon of hope out there when we're kind of swimming in the sea of whatever. I also want to thank the intellectuals, the teachers, for, I've had great experiences at the university. I was at the University of Santa Barbara working on my doctorate degree, and I had a very radical faculty in the sociology department, and very close with them today, but they basically said, you need to get out of here and go work for the labor movement, and boy, they were so right. I think they were just trying to get rid of me, but when I look back, the intellectual thought is so critical, and it needs to be in the labor movement, and it shapes our minds, and it shapes our values. And I just, Rick Santorum didn't miss that, right? And he wasn't talking about most academics. He was talking about you guys. I mean, that guy, in America, sometimes we elevate stupid to the new smart, and he is the gold standard of that. Oh, God, there's so much. It's like, oh, God, there's just so much. Anyway, let me tell you about our organization, because it is a great, wonderful organization with a great bunch of people who love to have fun and know who the enemy is. You cannot fool nurses, right? I mean, you just can't. They're looking at you, and they're seeing, while you're talking, what's really going on with you. And they do that and that's a metaphor for how they view society, right? So they look out there, and they hear this, babble, this, the psychobabble, I'm okay, you're okay, whatever. And they know everything's not okay. They have to live with the fallout in this society, what's happening to their patients every day as they fight their employers, and they see the types of lives their patients have when they don't get the type of care that they need, when children are presenting with adult conditions because of the type of diets and the culture that we have. They see the fallout. They are at ground zero of the fallout, and it's a tragedy. And they understand, and they have taken the concept of patient advocacy, and they become social advocates, and they're dynamite social advocates. Our organization is a member-driven organization. We provide tremendous education. We do political education in our organization. We do mobilization nonstop. We never stop moving. We were when Occupy got out there, we were so happy. It's like, oh, okay. Our folks actually knew how to protest. They've been doing it, for the last 20 years while everyone's kind of like stepping aside. And they're willing to take on the hard fights, the militant fights, the union fights, and we're always out on strike. And in fact, it's sad, but one of our research folks the other day looked up strikes and realized that we were leading them in the country. And I think that's a good thing, but I also think that's a bad thing because there should be fightbacks, and there should be fightbacks in labor, but we're all told to lower our expectations. Labor management partnerships, we abhor them. We won't participate in them. We think that anyone who teaches them is doing a grave injustice. You don't subordinate the needs of your patients for corporate profits. You just don't do that. Organization has not stopped laser-like focus on single payer, and bless you, Stanley, because the Obama thing, oh my God. We are aggressive union organizers. We organize outside of our comfort zones. We got California pretty nicely organized, and in fact, we won another union shop last night in California with the Sutter Corporation. That's a horrendous corporation. That's just last night. Our organizing director, David Johnson's here. It was awesome. But we organize in places like Texas and in places like Florida. We organize where a lot of people don't want to go, and for a whole lot of reasons. But what we find with the nurses is an interesting thing. They are some of our most outspoken, articulate, great fighters that we have in the organization. They've just been waiting. They've been waiting. And I think everyone's waiting out there for a labor movement that's going to really kind of jumpstart their passion. We see class solidarity as strategic and not tactical. We like genuine class solidarity. We've got some pretty good hallmark campaigns. Stanley talked about one. We have nurse-to-patient ratios in California, and when we had our celebrity governor, well, one of the celebrity governors, California is notorious for having bozos in the governorship, but we had Ronald Reagan, now we have Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Schwarzenegger comes along, and he decides he's going to roll back these hard-fought ratios that these nurses absolutely needed to be able to advocate for their patients. And at that point in time, it was really a bizarre situation. His approval rating was like, I mean, over the moon. And progressive people were lined up to try to get his autograph and get their photo with him. And so when he started, and I mean, this is why I love nurses. When he started on the nurses thing, then he said, well, I'd like to meet with you. And the nurses said, the hell with you. You move off those ratios or you're not going to meet with us. We're going to meet you in the streets. And by God, that's exactly what happened. And we met him in 107 protests across this country. Here in New York City, we went to his bodybuilding contest in Ohio or wherever it was. We followed him across this country because wherever he went, he got press. And wherever he got press, we capitalized on it and we got press. And we got press making fun of him. And so what happened in time is we actually were able to overcome that. And right, Michael, it's like awesome. Michael Leidy, who is our public policy guy, was really on point on that. And we just had a blast torturing Arnold. But at any rate, we put him up for sale on eBay because our philosophy was, if corporations can buy governors, why not real people? And we actually got it, like the bid going. I got a little bit afraid because I thought, oh, what if we have to pay like the profit on that or whatever, however eBay works, I don't know. Anyway, we defeated his initiatives. He made the critical mistake. This is where this guy met his Waterloo, famous last words. He stood in front of a women's conference with the lovely Maria Shriver, Democrat, and said, we had a banner. He was theoretically a groper, and so we had a banner that we unveiled in front of the conference saying, hands off our ratios, right? And kind of double entendre, pretty funny stuff. He got really rattled at the podium like this, and he said, ignore them. Those nurses are the special interest. I kick their butts every day. Well, you know what? The nurses put the shoe on the other foot. They kicked his butt. He's out of governorship. And aloha, Arnold. But then we got next up, Queen Meg, the Meg Whitman, the billionaire from eBay. This is something about eBay. Who decided she was going to run for governor following Arnold. We'd had enough of, crazy. So we decided to get ahead of that campaign, and we had, since she was going to buy the election, she literally spent $160 million. You can imagine the vulgarity in this country, spent $160 million, one person on herself, to put her picture on television to say, elect me, and was cynical enough to think that that was going to do it. I mean, that's pretty bad.
That's this year's MBTA operating budget deficit is lost to $160 million.
You know what I like about you guys? I knew you'd have the facts, so I don't have to have them. Thank you. Exactly. Hello. What about poverty? Those kind of... That chick put her face on television, $160 million worth. So what we did was we dressed up an actress, called her Queen Meg, and everywhere Meg Whitman went, our Queen Meg went. And the press, because they're so shallow, got very confused, and everybody got confused. I'm not kidding. It's like, I swear to God this happened. I swear. Michael, did this not happen? They got very confused. So we would have our Queen Meg saying, no education for you children going to the Capitol. And people got very confused, like, is that Meg Whitman? Because no one, I was like, oh my God. It was too much. It was so much fun. But we would have had the same scenario in California as we have in Wisconsin and Ohio and Michigan and Indiana, had it not been for the fact that, and Jerry Brown gives us full credit, that we took Meg Whitman out. He said, I hardly had to do anything. The nurses did the whole campaign, and then I just had to run for office. So it was true, actually. We had a pretty good time on that. But it just shows these people are so shallow, and they need to be exposed. And when you get people in motion, and you can actually have people who are actually interfacing and making fun of them creatively, I will say that, creatively, we can do all kinds of things. We also are involved and have been involved in Medicare for All with our single payer with Michael Moore. And we've done a whole trip through the United States on the Sicko tour. And what's really sad is Michael's done some of the best depiction of human suffering in that film. And that film should be, that should be the bestseller in America. And it's so easy to ignore suffering. What a country. Clean money. We dared to try to get money out of politics. In California, we kind of fell flat. The labor movement opposed us. Corporations opposed us. We thought it was a good idea. It's like kind of newsflash to the labor movement. You're not going to outspin the right. They're like, hello, Jesus. It's sort of weird, huh? At any rate, what makes us unique in the National Nurses United? I like to say it's the flatness of the surrounding terrain, but it might be in sometimes. Do not quote me outside of this room because I know none of you are in the labor bureaucracy except for me. Maybe not after tonight. Any rate, registered nurses, in spite of all of our antics, have #1 in credibility in this country in Gallup poll after Gallup poll. And it's really well deserved, and it's because nurses don't give up on people, and they don't ever lose hope. And I'll tell you what, these nurses are the most authentic players you'll ever deal with. They can sniff out BS. They know who's real. They know what's real. They care. That's what they do. They don't do partisan politics. They actually care for people, and they know that they have to care for society in order to care for people, and you can trust them. I've had just such an incredible privilege working with them for 26 years now. I never thought that that would happen when I went to work for nurses, and I found, oh my God, it's just like finding gold. I mean, it's pure hearts, good people, kind people, passionate people, compassionate people. It's every dream. I think I've got the best job in America because they're up for anything, and they've got the most credibility. They're strategically located in all communities across this country, and they want to do social change, and they like me. It's like we're such a match. I'm not kidding. We have a great time. Our priorities right now are Medicare for all, single payer still. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that in the United States of America, and it's such a disgrace, we have international guests here, but it's such a disgrace that this country would not care for its own. I mean, you take care of your people. You take care of your people. And what the nurses see literally should be a crime. The people who are so gutless and the people who give them cover in Washington, D.C. should be put in prison for the human suffering they've caused. There's this arbitrary number. It was 65, and that's when you get Medicare, right? And so we want Medicare for all. We want it improved because it needs improvement. And the greatest story I have that illustrates the need for that and how arbitrary it is, there was a patient who was a man who was 64 years old and was going to turn 65 in just a few days. He was on one of the operating tables in San Diego. One of our nurses told me the story that this man was pleading. He had an open heart surgery, and he was pleading with the nurses and the doctors if he could just wait for a few more days because he would be 65, and if he had that operation that day, he would become bankrupt. That is such a disgrace, but it's such a poignant story in terms of telling the case about the arbitrariness of our what you call health insurance system, which is what we have. So we want Medicare for all. The nurses, actually, what I love about it is that they have great contracts. We fought every employer imaginable and some really bloody fights, but they've got great contracts, great benefits, great pensions. And you know what? They believe everyone should. And they think this concessions, walking in for concessions, labor is thinking of a strategy of proposing concessions up front. I mean, that's just, how did we ever devolve this far where we would propose our own concessions? It's like, it's the Stockholm Syndrome. It literally is. It's like, God. Anyway, good jobs, our Main Street campaign, good jobs, health care, pensions, and a just society. Our probably most critical campaign, we're going to get single payer. I swear to you, we're going to do everything in this country to embarrass these people into getting out of the way. And all of the people who are giving them cover, exposing them. We have a great group in America, Healthcare Now. They've done great work on single payer, Physicians for National Health Care, the nurses. There's all these great groups that have been doing this work on single payer. Then they started having the dialogue about single payer in Washington, D.C. So they create their own groups. And I imagine some of you are in them, and you'll really love me for this. Health Care for America Now, right? Now, Health Care for America Now raises $40 million. Health Care for America Now says, we will never compromise off of single payer. And the president in the White House says, oh, yes, you will. And they go, all right, All right, we'll compromise there. But we will never compromise off of a public option. And the White House says, we will fight to the death for a public option. The labor movement, yeah, HCAN, fighting for the public option. And then the White House says, no, no, no. All right, but here's our line in the sand. Here's our line in the sand, the ever-shifting line in the sand. I'd love to negotiate against these guys. It would be so easy. But we will never agree to an individual mandate. And the White House says, you're having an individual mandate. And they say, rah, rah, individual mandate, go for it. And they're like actually the rallying troops for the individual mandate now at a position they said that they would never accept. That's set up. That's contrived. That's liberals. That's our political group in D.C. that give these bozos in the White House cover so they never enact real reforms. They're the cover. They're the class collaborators. We've always had them in history. What we have to do is to ignore them, ignore D.C., and actually start a people's movement in this country. Okay. All right. So just, I did get off my speech here, damn it. I just want to, before I do, I just want to talk about the public option. I don't want to talk about the public option. I want to talk about the most probably significant global campaign that we're engaged in, and that's a campaign for a financial transaction tax. And we are working with some incredible people, Robert Poland from UMass, David Hillman, who's here from Stamp Out Poverty, people from the UK, the Robin Hood people, just really incredible players on the global scene. And we're working to enact a global financial transaction tax. And this goes at the heart of capital. It goes at the heart of capital. It's a non-reformist reform. It's a systemic reform. It basically taxes these financial institutions 50 cents on every $100. I think they can afford it. It's a drop in the bucket. It could generate up to $350 billion a year into this economy. $350 billion just for 50 cents on $100 on their gambling trades. Everyone should get involved with this campaign because it doesn't put anybody out of business. It doesn't send jobs overseas. So all the answers that we always hear when we embark upon our campaign to tax the rich, those answers are gone. They've concentrated power and wealth at the top so significantly that they think they're untouchable. Well, you know what? We've got a global movement. We're going to stop them. And it's the most significant movement, I think, that's going on internationally because it's about transformation of the economy to a sustainable economy, not one that's on bubbles and trickles and everything else that these guys can imagine. So we actually really would appreciate you joining with us. Just one quick story on the financial transaction tax, and I'll be done, I promise. The legislators are so dismissive of the nurses, and the nurses really get this financial transaction tax, and it's the most critical question. And so the nurses fanned out in the legislature, and one of the legislators, progressive legislators, said, well, you nurses need to lower your expectations, right? And the nurse turned to her and said, would you like me to say that to you when you're on my operating table? At any rate, we have these. Thank you.